Hey, welcome! Today, we're diving into one of history's greatest mysteries, but we're going to do it by looking at an ancient text that tried to solve it thousands of years ago. We're going to explore an argument that completely flips a story most of us just take for granted, the legend of the lost tribes of Israel. I mean, the story is legendary, isn't it? 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel just gone, conquered, deported, and then poof, vanished from history. It's the kind of epic puzzle that has launched expeditions and fascinated people for centuries. But what if the whole idea of them being lost is, well, just a story? Okay, so let's get our bearings. We have to go way back to around 722 BCE. The Assyrian Empire, a real superpower of the day, sweeps in, conquers the northern kingdom of Israel, and carries off a huge chunk of its population. And that single dramatic event, that's the starting point for this entire narrative of the 10 lost tribes. And man, did that idea stick. You get this picture in your head, right, of these communities just wandering the earth, their identities totally erased, just waiting for some intrepid explorer to find them. It's a really compelling, almost romantic tale. Okay, but this is where it all gets so interesting. What if I told you there's an ancient author who, writing centuries after all this happened, laid out a passionate, incredibly detailed case to prove that nobody was actually lost at all? And his secret weapon? The Book of Chronicles. All right, so let's meet the guy at the center of all this. We don't know his name, so scholars just call him the chronicler. He's writing for his own community, living in the Persian province of Yahud, and he is on a mission. He wants to use historical records to prove to his people exactly who they are, a whole, complete, and unbroken nation. Now, you know when you're reading an ancient text and you hit those long lists of names, it's so easy for our eyes to just glaze over and skip them. But for the chronicler, these genealogies were everything. They weren't just about who your great-grandpa was. No, these were high-stakes documents that decided it all: who could be a priest, who owned land, and who truly belonged. And this is such a brilliant way to think about it. Scholar Dr. August Konkel points out that these lists worked a lot like official records we'd recognize today. Think of a list of a city's mayors or a state's governors. They were all about establishing legitimacy and a direct line to the past. Yeah, this was definitely serious business. And this right here, this is the heart of his entire project. His main point is simple, but so powerful. The nation isn't split between some lost tribes in the north and the surviving tribes in the south. Nope. For him, all 12 tribes are present and accounted for. He is basically shouting from the rooftops that this lost tribes idea is just plain wrong. So, okay, that's a pretty bold claim. How does he actually go about proving it? Well, he pulls out his most prized records, those genealogies, and he starts doing a roll call, methodically checking off the very tribes that were supposedly wiped from the history books. And check this out, he's not just, name-dropping them. He is listing their important families, their military heroes, their warriors. He is systematically rebuilding the entire picture of a complete 12-tribe Israel for his readers, proving that these northern tribes are still very much in the game. This is just so clever. The chronicler uses geography to make a killer point. He zeroes in on the tribe of Benjamin. Why? Because their territory literally created a bridge between the northern and southern tribes. And get this, it ran right through Jerusalem. So the capital city itself becomes this powerful physical symbol of unity. Another thing you'll see is that the chronicler is always listing these massive populations for the tribes. And this isn't just a census. For him, big numbers were a sign of God's blessing. It was his way of making a theological statement, saying, see, these tribes people claim are lost, they're not just here, they're thriving. Now, it's really important to get this. The chronicler isn't just making this all up. He's working like a real historian, digging through different, probably messy, older sources and trying to piece them together. And here's the wild part. The little imperfections and gaps in his record actually make his whole project feel more believable. So when you see a gap in the list, or a family tree that doesn't quite seem to add up, it's tempting to just think, an error. But what if it's not a mistake at all? What if it's actually a clue that shows us how he was working, and that he was being honest with the material he had? So, for example, the tribe of Zebulun, they're just not on his list. So what gives? Well, the simplest answer is probably the right one. The specific historical documents he was using didn't happen to mention them, and instead of just faking it or making something up, he just leaves the gap. That tells you he's trying to be faithful to his sources. But then you get to the puzzle of Ephraim, and this one's a bit more of a head-scratcher.
The genealogy for this major northern tribe is, well, it's complicated. It kind of looks like he's presenting two totally different family lines without really connecting them.
So what's happening here is he's got these two different strands of history for the tribe of Ephraim. But the crucial part is the chronicler doesn't try to neatly stitch them together to make it all make sense. He just presents the sources as he has them, one after the other. He preserves the ambiguity, which shows he's committed to the records, warts and all. Okay, so after all this meticulous work, laying out the evidence, piece by piece, tribe by tribe, we finally get to the grand finale of his entire argument. This is the climax of his whole project. Boom, there it is. One short, clear, definitive statement. This is his final verdict. It's the capstone on his entire argument. He's basically dropping the mic and saying, I've shown you the records. The case is closed. All of Israel is here.
And you have to understand just how huge this was for his audience. This was not some dry history lesson. He was looking his own community in the eye and telling them, you, all of you, right here, right now in Yehud, you are the legitimate, complete heirs of the entire 12-tribe promise. Your past is not lost.
So he paints this beautiful picture of a complete, well-ordered society. You've got Jerusalem right at the center. You have the priests providing leadership, the Levites supporting them, even acting as security, which is pretty cool. And the whole thing is built on that solid foundation of all Israel. Everyone has a place and a purpose. So, if you boil it all down, what's the one big takeaway? It's continuity. The chronicler's whole massive project was designed to prove that his community was directly and seamlessly connected to their entire heritage. In his view, there were no lost tribes. There was just one whole people with one unbroken history. And that leaves us with a really fascinating thought, doesn't it? The chronicler literally used history, storytelling about the past, to forge a new identity for his people in the present. And it just makes you wonder, what are the big stories we tell about our own past, and how do those stories shape our understanding of who we are, right here and right now?